So today is the 6th day of our faculty development program, which is organized by Don Bosco College in collaboration with Globe Ethics on the topic of crafting excellence, research and innovation in the age of AI. And when we have been, over the days, we have been talking about research methodology, and research design. And today, we are going to delve into a very important aspect of research, that is ethics. And I think in the age of AI, there is a lot of challenges. And when ethics is not in place, the entire aspect of research is down the drain. So we have with us Dr. Ignace Haaz and Dr. Mikhail, who would be shedding light on these areas in the age of AI. Let us have a look at their profile. And in the onset, today is our Republic Day, to wishes of the Republic Day to all the participants. And it is a very important day, being the greatest democracy. Republic Day is a very important day of our constitution and in our country. So Republic Day wishes, and let's have a look at the profile.
Professor Ignace Haaz completed his postdoctoral research on the philosophy and ethics of punishment from the University of Freiburg in Switzerland. He completed his PhD and MA in philosophy from the University of Geneva in Switzerland. He is currently working as Managing Director of Editorial and Publication Management at globeethics.net, Geneva. He takes care of globeethics.net publications department by receiving projects across 21 different series. Don Bosco College, Bengaluru welcomes you, sir. Professor Ignace Haaz.
Dr. Mikhail Heumann is an ethics analyst. He has degrees in psychology, management, organization studies, and cultural theory, and a PhD in organizational studies and cultural theory, with a dissertation written in the fields of business ethics and the philosophy of economics. In 2017, he completed the Transatlantic Doctoral Academy on Business, Economics, and Ethics, TADA, and he is a 2016 FASPE Business Fellow. He is also a doctoral researcher and doctoral student at the University of Lausanne in the field of philosophy and science. We welcome you.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I want to thank all the organizers, the organizing committee of Bosco College for the kind invitation. I'm going to talk about Lovelock James Novacine, The Coming Age of Hyperintelligence. This is a commentary. This is a commentary on the utility and importance of AI and ethics. I'm going to divide in 20 sub-sections my presentation and hope to deliver each point in a minute. The list of the topics are the following. We'll present the introduction to naturalism. What is naturalism? Romantic, modern, and contemporary type of naturalism. We are going to present the notion of cosmology in the 17th century and try to show that it's indeed, since a long time, a promising field of research. The Gaia hypothesis, which has been proposed by the author James Lovelock, is in fact based on a self-comprehending divinization of the world. And we are going to ask the question whether it's back to pantheism. Then we are going to reflect on saving the concept of free human decision-making and find if there is an alternative on assuming a global romantic unconscious divine will which might not, in fact, need any strong free will. Then we'll list some objections from the economic costs of the hypothesis of AI-based Novacene. We'll see that there was a dialogue and there is a dialogue between natural sciences and narrative descriptions from the imagination of scientists. And Earth is since a long time being considered as a physical, biological, chemical complex system. But should we consider it as a living thing by our standards? That's, I think, not so sure. We'll then dive into AI and hyperintelligence. What is the real utility of these concepts? And I think that at some point we'll come back to philosophical and theological concepts such as imago Dei, because one of the key concepts of Lovelock is that we might be midwives for AI humans at some point of our evolution on Earth. And this raises the question of human distinctiveness and of the telos, the finality of what we are aiming on Earth to achieve. Then we'll conclude by moral aspects on the question of the midwife hypothesis of humanity for AI. So this is roughly the different sections of my presentation. I start immediately by the introduction on naturalism. Naturalism has different type of definitions. You have the modern, the romantic, and the contemporary. Lovelock's Gaia is in fact in much degree the same good old wine in a new barrel. It is about, in fact, the notion of an unconscious life, as the German romantic Goethe already have presented it. And there was a philosophical history of life and the natural history, which was, in fact, in the middle of the 19th century and even before in modernity, in the Lebensphilosophical interrogation. So it was a philosophy of life which has carved the central concept of an unconscious life in development. Bewusstlos bildenden Leben would Carl Gustav Carus in 1789 write. So there would be something such as a world where we would share with animals, plants, early nature, early bodies, an unconscious basis of our psyche. And so life could be, in fact, something we share with even inanimated beings, which are on the earth. And this hypothesis is, in fact, in the center of the Gaia concept, as we will show, but it has very old roots in what also Nietzsche has shown as the innocence of the being, as Unschuld des Werdens, where he wants to focus on fostering an environment of reduced anxiety related to the affirmation of life, namely taking a careful ethical focus on a part of moral psychology, which in fact is incorporating self-esteem, shared love, and a flourishing of creative powers on a very large scale. And Novacene, which is the concept of James Lovelock's latest book, is grounded on the idea of natural selection and evolution. To a large degree, we will share at the end of our presentation, among those who are participating to this conference, a bibliography of secondary literature about the commentaries of this work. Let's dive into the romantic and modern description of the cosmos. So Novacen is not new to the extent that it is building on an older principle or concept that Lovelock has introduced earlier, which is the Gaia concept. And all these notions are in fact revisiting the old cosmos concept, which is in fact the study of cosmology, the study of what worlds might be constituted in. And this has traditionally partly be related to irrational, purely based on imagination, type of reflections, poetic type of reflection, and partly serious scientific taste for traveling into the unknown sphere of the universe. So let's see now the modern early interest in cosmology in the 17th century as a delicate but promising field of research. If we consider, for instance, the work of René Descartes in the 17th century, early 17th century, we find already that the French philosopher, the student of the Jesuit La Flèche College, in his correspondence is considering the Traité du Monde, also Summa Philosophiae, his work on the cosmos, that he called his work, Son Monde, was a project of publication that he wanted to submit to print at the year 1633, and which eventually succeeded to be published only 31 years later after the death of the philosopher. Of course, at that time, it was not so easy, and even with political risks, to reflect on such things as the nature of the world. And curiously, the title of the book, so this cosmology of Descartes, will be Traité de la Lumière, which, as Humboldt in his collection of the correspondence of Descartes writes, is a curious, in fact, title for research on the nature of the world. So let's come back to the importance for the contemporary Lovelock of this notion of cosmos. Cosmos, in fact, so the study of the world, has two ingrained foundational concepts for Lovelock. Lovelock is a British scientist. He has done physics and chemistry in a very deep and serious degree research in, and has found a series of inventions that you can find on the Wikipedia page devoted to the author. The British scientist died in 2022, so just 2 years ago. His two main concepts are Gaia, the vision of an Earth becoming a self-developing living being, as we just introduced with the Romantic tradition on naturalism. And the second concept is the new human cyber future, or Novacene, by opposition to Anthropocene. This is a new concept that we are going to introduce. Let's introduce now this second idea, that of a self-coordinating world, as constructed with Gaia, could be brought to a higher level of action and coordination if we introduce artificial intelligence, not only natural combinations of the parts of a large living organism. This, of course, idea that AI might help a natural selection process or a social selection process is a very popular idea in the mainstream media, and we read narratives on the need to find new ways of managing our energy to deal with natural disasters, storms, floods, heat waves, etc., related to legitimate hopes to transform our environment with the help of AI. Some of these narratives are not fully without important inconsistencies. Many see in AI a faster and more efficient way of calculating Pareto principle-based results, suited to deal with wide societal and natural challenges. In a nutshell, AI across disciplines in education and research is associated with great hope on the one side. On the other side, a quite distinct discussion is arising from the scholarship debates in relation to mitigation of global warming or development of AI, but rather also ethical mediation on the reasons for poor decision-making processes. And it is widely believed that in order to deal concretely with new societal tensions arising often very indirectly from natural conditions, decision-making are nevertheless sensitive to the swiftness of the reaction to these problems, and then AI might impact positively leaders in decision-making processes. So how far is AI, in fact, a source for positive news with regard to management of problems, societal and natural, and to what degree is it a source of large infodemic, so obstructing, in fact, clear view on the needs and the actions which are deemed appropriate. We are not going to enter into the debate between skeptics and dogmatics on this subject, but propose now to pass to the Gaia hypothesis. So the idea of the self-comprehending divinization of the world. Is it going back to pantheism? If you remember, but first let's read what Lovelock writes on this subject. Lovelock writes that we are the way in which the cosmos has awoken to self-knowledge. That's Lovelock 2019, his work Novacine, page 12. So we human, and also the world, the cosmos, as an entity which has awoken to self-knowledge. So literally, Gaia, the world, so cosmos, the study of the world, can be, in fact, complemented by this notion that we try, or there is a try and even success to understand itself of the world. And the earth has awoken to self-knowledge. The corollary to this concept is that there is information saturated life in the world. So the world gains, in fact, a perfect understanding of itself, not only by human organization, strictly speaking, AI, which in fact would increase this human organization in a more efficient way. And so I think it's very interesting to see that, in fact, the author comes back to a concept which is well known by classical Spinozists, which is that of pantheism. What is pantheism? There is an ontological distinction between divine and non-divine, usually, which is admitted. But in pantheistic views, this distinction is not so much maintained, and the divine and the universe are practical under the attribute of the extension or the intelligence in the metaphysic of in the Cartesian metaphysic of Spinoza. So if we come back to Spinoza and Descartes, so early modernity, we have the notion of substance, which is the classical notion, metaphysical notion. And for Spinoza, human beings are only modes of this substance. We are one way for this substance to, in fact, concretize itself into creatures such as human beings, but it's only one possible mode. There might be other intelligences that are far more elaborate than human beings. This is not at all in contradiction with the idea that the substance or the divine intelligence and most perfect presence and being is in fact the single cause of everything is taking place in the world, and that in fact there is no such thing as two substances, one which would be the human substance, the human the affirmation of a human autonomy or autonomous and transcendental will, as we will find with Kant. In the early stage of modernity with Spinoza, we have an immanentist view, which is that of this self-understanding divine perfect intelligence, and this notion in fact identifies two concepts: the understanding and the world. We are coming back exactly to the hypothesis of our author Lovelock. Next question: saving the concept of free human decision making, is it necessary? Is it interesting? Or should we assume that global romantic unconscious divine will, which determines our actions, is important and as plausible? We might not answer to this question, but we can also distinguish from pantheism the panentheistic perspective, which would reintroduce the distinction between the natural realm of the universe and non-natural aspects, and this has been, of course, the work of Leibniz, who was theologian and a philosopher, and who tried to find a compatibilist view between human freedom of decision making and a view of the cosmos, which was also equally strongly deterministic on the natural structure of the life and on the determination of the world as naturally and physically causal set of elements. And so we could, with Lovelock, either go into the direction of Spinoza with the Gaia universe concept, which identify the world and as a divine being and evacuate it to a large extent human determination as decision making, or instead we can also problematize this assumption and say that we want to save human transcendental capacity for free decision making. It is interesting to emphasize that it is not necessary to have a transcendental concept of the free will to save the concept of liberation of a life, which is found in Spinoza's philosophy or earlier, and also inherent to Lovelock's concept of Gaia. So it is not contradictory with the idea that there is a strong identification of the world and life, and all type of life, including human life. This is question of distinguishing between higher level of perfections and lower level of perfections, and naturally selecting a world organism which in fact suits the better, in fact, the perfectionist metaphysics that is behind. But it is interesting, I think, to note that there is in the next concept, which is the introduction of AI into the picture of this pantheistic world, with the concept of the Novacene, there is the objection of the economic costs to this. It is possible that bringing high-level computers, super intelligent computers into the picture might, in fact, add costs to the sustaining cost already of all other living beings. And it is not at all sure that, in fact, cyborgs, as Lovelock introduces, would not, in fact, be only angelic beings, which would help us to, in fact, sustain planetary equilibriums, but as they will need also a lot of energy, there might be some competition between these beings and other living beings. So this is an objection which is, I think, important. I think that I pass directly to other important objections because the time is going very fast. It is about the hyper intelligence concept that is at the center of this concept of artificial intelligence in the proposition of Lovelock. Of course, many of you know that AI systems have developed very efficient ways of dealing with problems, mainly mathematical and game theory type of problems. And there has been, for instance, the AlphaZero AI system, which has produced a fantastic results, such as learning chess without even having any problems to redo millions of times the different strategies in order to get the rule of chess playing in place, and mu0 has even overcome AlphaZero. This is another super powerful AI system which has succeeded to learn chess without having even the rules in the first place being told. And these systems can, of course, impress a lot, and we can then have a very strong expectation on the side of AI for the future of the world. But there is also a lot of questions that are arising, some of which are, in fact, that there are a lot of phantasm around the idea that AI would, in the distant future, resolve all our problems the way we need them to be resolved. There is a lot of human capacity involved in AI, in the sense of an internet technology, so a technology that relates not only machines and computing capacities that are on the table, but also human beings that are in fact managing these computers. And so, in fact, with AI, we also talk about persons and groups of people that are not independent entities, but that are also related to these machines. And And so it is very difficult at the current stage to just imagine a world without these human beings driving, in fact, the computers, as it is the case now, although it's not always clear in which way these groups are, in fact, influencing the use of AI. But one of the key concepts, and I'm going to conclude shortly, is that Lovelock, in fact, sees humanity as a midwife for artificial intelligence in the long run, meaning that, in fact, instead of artificial intelligence being a tool that would be a useful help for societal problems and natural risks, in fact, humans would be serving the technology instead, because technology would be so much efficient in the way it swiftly calculates results and solve problems that, in fact, we would have globally an interest in the world to be under the domination, if you wish to use this term, of the leadership of computers or cyborgs. And I think that this raises and this is my conclusion, the question of the theological account of human distinctiveness, which is, of course, very distinct from the one of a stewardship or a midwife, for AI, because of the imago Dei that we find in Genesis 1:27, that human, in fact, exercises stewardship and dominion over the world, but through the concept of the imago Dei, through being the true representative of God on earth. And even if we take the rationalist Cartesian idea and not the telos of the Bible, we still have an infinite, intelligent, and immense substance, divine, godly being. And even without the theological biblical aim, there could be good arguments to prevent us from a mindless type of intelligences that would drive, in fact, the agenda. And the projection of the AI and future intelligence needs, in fact, to respond to a long list of criteria in order to approach this substance type of divine intelligence. Of course, it is a matter of decades that AI gets there. If we read AI experts, such as the 2016 survey of 550 AI experts that reveal that most of the expected human-level AI will be reached between 2040 and 2050, and that we will reach artificial superintelligence by 2080 latest. But these projections fail, in fact, to explain, for instance, concepts such as the saturation of the cosmos by intelligence, which is not a clear concept, and that you find also in Lovelock. And instead of this saturation by information, we need the universe to awake naturally and give birth to conscious entities which possess all mental and moral capabilities necessary to become a recipient of the divine or the metaphysical substance, intelligence, and will. And so it is very far from being something that could be just driven by computers. The moral aspect of the question, to finish, is the bioliberal risk, which is if we would leave the driving seat to the computers, we might be, in fact, inducing pleading that becoming post-human is a moral imperative, but this is highly questionable from an ethical normative ground, and it raises the question of the axiology of human values, which are not only utilitarian in their aim, serving the great machine, but also allow us to refuse self-augmentation, for instance, and that self-augmentation should not be seen as an evil in the future. So we should be, in fact, recognized as human, and the replication of human mind, to conclude, is also problematic in the sense that we replicate our capacity for bullshit and stupidity. So the byproduct of human intelligence is also the shadow side of intelligence in a lot of disinformation and problems. And this, in turn, might, if we reproduce that in an automated way, bring less joyful outcomes than those that the author proposes, because algorithmic bias, fake news, shows pessimistic picture of the effect of widespread use of AI. As the head of the IT department of Oxford University, Wooldridge, has been interestingly showing. So thank you very much. This is, I think, the conclusion of my presentation, which was about Lovelock's model of the world as possibly driven at some point by intelligent beings, which are not only human beings and animals, but also and divine intelligence, but also cyborgs. Thank you very much. And I pass without transition the word to my colleagues, organizers, and also to my great friends, Michael Heumann, who has published with Globethics his reflections, which have partly relation to our presentation, because they are also dealing with Cartesian thinking. So welcome, Michael, and I pass over to my colleagues.
Thank you very much, Ignace, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great honor to be here digitally. My first question is, are you seeing my screen at the moment and the slideshow?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's good. I'm not sure if you see the slideshow doesn't. 1 second, please. I'm trying to fix the fact that now you should see the entire slideshow. All right. Okay. So basically, I'm simply going to add a few comments from my side to the presentation Ignace has just given. We're going to continue to talk about environmentalism and AI. Basically, what we just had with the Gaia hypothesis and the AI paradigm, the question is, how does it get together in the version of Lovelock? But Lovelock is not like an exception. He's just a very consistent thinker of trying to bring this together. And we're going to look at the philosophical assumptions behind what I propose to call a rather strange alliance. And we will see just why this is a strange alliance, because traditional environmentalism in the West has origins in the mindset and streams of thought that are very critical of rationality and rationalization. For example, in Romanticism. And you see this picture here by a Romantic artist from the early 19th century, a very famous one, Caspar David Friedrich. And it shows, well, yeah, there is a human being. It's still part of the Romantic picture being critical of rationality, but that human being looks into nature, is embedded in nature, just climbed the mountain, looks into the mountains. I'm joining you from a Swiss mountain valley, why I find this picture to be fitting, not just for the content, but also for the format of the presentation I'm giving. And from these critical perspectives of a certain type of rationality in the West, there would be several plausible expectations from the history of thought, namely that environmentalism would be very, or at least to some degree, critical of the normatively privileged status of the human being. So in the picture you are seeing, it's still the human being is still there, but the human being he looks into nature, and sort of nature becomes again the environment, the focus, with the critique being that it's sort of lost in this rational perspective that Enlightenment brought in the West. So you would expect a critical stance of the Cartesian res cogitans, that the reality status of the I is supposed to be higher than the outside world. You would also have another expectation, namely that environmentalism would be critical to methods that subjugate the environment with the tools of Cartesianism. We haven't defined Cartesianism yet. We're going to do that during the course of the presentation, at least as much as possible. We're probably not going to wholly define it, but we're going to approach it a bit. And so you would expect it to be critical of what I call res extensa-based natural science methods and language. That means objectivism in mathematics. So you would also expect to be extremely critical of the form, namely scientism, the form that brings those natural science methods to the realm of the subjective sphere, to the mind, consciousness, and intentionality. Those are the expectations that you would have. I saw that during this project week, you talked about quantitative and qualitative methods. And basically what we're seeing on the next slides is that there is a shift now going on in environmentalism from qualitative methods, methodologically speaking, to quantitative methods. And there's even a shift within quantitative methods. But first, we're going to look at, can we say that there were successful or consistent implementations of traditional environmentalism in the West? Because industrialization, bureaucratization, and in the 20th and 21st century, digitalization are rather very prominent phenomenon of how Western culture, Western society, and economics, the economy have developed. And nonetheless, there are some partially successful implementations of traditional environmentalism. If we, for example, look at the national and state parks that are famous for the United States and for many other countries as well, though the critical reception has been ambivalent. For example, in Snyder, so he says, well, yeah, those national and state parks, they drive back the human being, and also this notion of superiority of the human being versus nature, but still they are still embedded in modern economic and social structures and in the mindset. So usually they only one considers them to be partially successful. But now we're actually seeing a shift from traditional environmentalism to what I propose to call scientific environmentalism. That's rather a recent development of the past few decades. So what we see politically is stronger than ever green movements and political parties in the West. And the difference is that they rely on technology to solve real and supposed environmental challenges. So we have green growth. So we don't try to get rid of like economic growth. We just try to adapt it, that it fits into solving environmental problems and issues. And also what is real and what is only supposedly problematic about the environment, that's determined by natural science. And there's the slogan, follow the science. It's quite strong in modern or even postmodern, if you will, environmental movements. And also socially, if you look at the participants of those movements, they are very usually even not just the young, but also even elderly members of environmental modern movements, the one of the past few decades. They are very much relying on social media, technological based exchange, and modes of communication. And well, a few decades ago, they would have gone to the forest, the local environmental group, and saved some frogs, for example. But now they're going to demonstrations on Fridays, and they're talking about the very, very big issues, climate, economic growth. And those issues are usually conceptualized and operationalized in a quantitative way. So the most extreme form, we just had this splendid presentation about James Lovelock, and also some critical comments by Ignace. And now we have this we don't have to dig deeper here. We just have now on the environmental side, this Gaia hypothesis. Now we have this AI paradigm to solve environmental issues. And the question is, how is that actually compatible in the first place? And is it not that the compatibility, that the price we have to pay for it, that we sort of change the Gaia hypothesis from its original formulation more to a systems theory, actually a physical, biological explanation? Ignace mentioned that we have an evolution theory and natural science theory on how the environment developed. And also AI, what's the relationship to the environment? And first, what's the relationship to the human being? So for the Lovelockian approach, and for the ones that believe that AI solves the issues, AI is even in comparison to the human being, a sort of I call it bluntly, a superior life form. It's quantitative, mathematically, it's superior. Thus, it is better equipped at problem solving. That's the claim. And so what is actually retained here now from traditional environmentalism in scientific environmentalism, the critique of the normative status of the human being is still there, but there seems to be some kind of radicalization, actually. We could even say, like turn the mirror around and say, well, do you not retain an instrumental view of the world by claiming that AI is actually equipped at understanding the environment and understanding the problems of the environment and understanding how to solve those problems? Is it not simply perhaps a radicalization of that what was criticized in the instrumental rationality by traditional environmentalists, now simply just also extending to the human beings, which always had a sort of a special place, which were not supposed to be subjugated into the naturalistic view of the world, but which had just like in Descartes, an own sphere, an own substance, the mind that is equipped at making free decisions in order to also have an impact on the outside world, the environment. And we need an explanation. How does the shift come about? And what we see is AI, the AI age. You're talking about the AI age. It seems to be more or less now everywhere in the West, and even in traditional environmentalism. Now, what has happened to good old Cartesianism? And the first takeaway here is that there's no real unified critical theory, at least in my opinion, that is equipped to deal with it. We have good critiques, very good critiques. We have critiques of scientism, economism, materialism, relativism, because all those fit into this picture. And we cannot go into any details here today because we are already running out of time. But the claim is here that all of those critiques are necessary but not yet sufficient in order to explain why this, for example, the shift even in environmentalism has happened. And what I will do now is during the rest of the presentation, I will propose a sort of a category apparatus with which we try to, with which we can perhaps help understand better what perhaps has happened here. Latour is mentioned here. He's not to be misinterpreted with Lovelock, but he's also a very pronounced environmentalist, and he is very critical also. And there is at least a similarity, at least to some degree, to Lovelock. He's very critical of the human being, and he comes from there. He's also a renowned relativist. He says, well, the human being, he's not supposed to construct his reality to be superior above the natural environment, and basically he's skeptical of the special status of the human being. He says it's not there. We have to deconstruct it. The human being is part of nature and nothing else. So we are not going to talk about the computational materialism proposal by Floridi because we don't have enough time for that. Floridi is a thinker who tried to show what happened to Cartesianism here, and he proposes something called computational materialism, which also is thought to be helping instrument to understand what happened to the original premises of Cartesian, or at least Cartesian influenced streams of thought, movements, even those that are intending to be critical, like environmentalism, of a certain form of Cartesian rationality. And we don't have time to talk about it. I will send out the slides later on, though I would like to make the point that it's a very systematically fruitful analysis. Everyone who wants to dig deeper into the philosophical underpinnings of AI and computational thought it's also stated here at the bottom of the slides, is very welcome to take a look at this work by Floridi, Philosophy and Computing. In 1999 is the first publication year. I'm referring to an online version of the book. And though I personally, I'm very much following more or less into the same line here. In my dissertation that was mentioned by Ignace, I'm trying to propose that what has happened here in Western thought, which explains such radical shifts, such as in environmentalism, and even a shift within the quantitative paradigm, away from what can call perhaps objectivist ways of conceiving of the environment, to mathematical abstractions of it. So even a shift from the method of objectivism to the language of mathematics. And what I propose is that once you start to reverse the relationship between the res cogitans and the res extensa, which in Descartes is very clear, the res cogitans has a higher status of reality. So he has different arguments. The argument of being philosophical arguments of trying to prove that that what he's talking about is real. The I, the res cogitans, and the res extensa, the outside world. But the res cogitans has a superior status because it holds up against the genius malignus test, and the res extensa does not. We cannot go into any details here. For those who are not into philosophy, they are welcome to take a look at the works if they have not done so far. They are very, very paradigmatic for many of the issues we have nowadays regarding, for example, AI. And the proposal is that once you shift around the relationship, you get into a self-perpetuation process which cannot be stopped anymore, and which even goes as far as it changes. Also, just now, I will talk about it only in a very superficial manner now about the slides, that once you reduce the relationships of idealism and materialism and the ones of absolutism and relativism in such a way that you reduce it to materialism and relativism, you start to have a dynamics which I call a Cartesianistic self-dynamics, which is a proposal at trying to understand what is happening even in this shift from objectivist quantitative methods to a form of, Ignace mentioned actually pantheism, to something what might perhaps be called computational pantheism. And computationalist views, and that was one of the critique that we haven't had time to talk about today, John Searle. It was also his point in his critique of the strong AI paradigm, that once you start with the mind, you actually end up in something that is called pan-computationalism, something where you think the essence of the outside world is actually information, and it's the essence of what is being outside of the mind is that it performs computations and nothing else. So there is something stronger going on than just the relationship of the subject and the object, but which even concerns the relationship of objectivism and mathematics within the res extensa, and the fact that the res extensa becomes sort of the now superior substance over the res cogitans. That's just a very, very short, brief, and superficial glimpse of attempts, and perhaps the takeaway would be that there are certain attempts, like by Floridi or the one I did in the before mentioned dissertation project, that try to make sense of this AIification or computerization of thought, and even the environmentalist movement, which started out to be would have been very critical of something happening to that movement. That's basically, because I'm seeing time-wise, we are already running out. That's basically it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ignace Haaz, and thank you, Dr. Michael, for the wonderful presentation. A lot of philosophical thoughts and a lot of ideas which obviously cannot be covered in a span of 1 hour. There are a lot of ideas that you have put, and each of these topics need a detailed discussion or in-depth research to even understand the ideas, and how over a period of time the different isms have influenced our life, and how our very thought process has changed over time. Now, when we talk about research, I think research is one of the highest order of human creativity. It's an action of creation where we're creating new knowledge. And today, we have many AI tools that help us in this process of creation. But how ethical do you think it is? And where do you think we should draw the line of this is what I would do, this is where I can take the assistance of AI? Where do you think we should be drawing that line?
Thank you for perhaps very quickly, I make some comments, and I think it's a very nice way to exchange with Michael. We have here a topic which is also I think strongly related to a lot of myths, and myth can be misleading, can be related to fears, can be related to a lot of irrationality. And what I would argue that emotions and the whole the human being needs to be, in fact, understood in the sense of not only an intelligence capacity, but understanding. Understanding means all the parts of the soul. This is about intelligence to cogitans, but it's also about the will. It's about the emotions, the sensibility, the capacity of empathy, the capacity, the sensibility, so the capacity of reception of and to listen. And so all these capacities are very important. And if there is fear because we ignore some of the consequences of new solutions to problems, then we might, be then be driven into all sorts of either preventive and prudence-based reflections, which are then aiming at preventing these problems, or we might be emotionally then impacted, and then this is ethically problematic, and we should be careful about that.
Thank you. We have one question from one of our participants. How reliable is AI for research and for scholars?
Perhaps this is a good opportunity to try to answer the question. I will not say how reliable it is, but I will offer a way to try to ascertain reliability with regard to AI in research. And the philosophical assumptions that are needed in order to answer this question cannot be derived from this computationalist way of thinking. So if you put on, we had the term by Ignace mentioned, a utilitarian way of thinking, which is ultimately also a computationalist way of thinking. If you use that as a standard, as an ethical standard, in order to ascertain the reliability, but this also concerns the first question, the limits of AI, the ethical limits. You will end up in a circular argumentation. You need an outside perspective, one that basically is has to be presupposed in order to talk about computations in the first place. So if you talk about ethical standards, like contrarian approaches like deontology, that also are very critical of trying to make sense of the world just by utilitarian standards, I would propose to look for those ethical schools. And with regard to the reliability question, a very, very important one in my eyes, as someone who is now working in the field of the philosophy of science, is that any way of trying to define reliability by just quantitative means will end up in a way that you cannot basically really ascertain the reliability of AI without basically giving a non-answer. So in order to give a valid answer, no matter how this might look in detail later on, so I cannot answer the question, so I can only move to the meta level, you need a standpoint that is not reduced to quantitative computationalist ways. Usually in good books of philosophy of science, like if you look at the standards of the quality standards of natural science, for example, in Popper, you will usually have criteria which cannot be reduced to quantitative, like to just quantitative measurements. And that should be the test, right? That should be the test if the reliability standard is a sound one or not, in order to ascertain the scope and the limits of AI.
Thank you for putting it in plain research terms and making it clear. We have another question, that is, do you think in the future AI would become like the brain of human beings, just like how we use a pacemaker in case? So do you think there is a possibility like that?
Well, if I may continue, I would say that in Lovelock, I found an interesting concept which might be useful to answer this question, which is the supersaturation of the world by information. I hear in this term of sursaturation already something very pejorative, in the sense that, everything is about balancing things, in life. And in ethics, in theory of justice, in even political theory. And so saturation of information can only be misleading. There is an incredible wealth of articles written by theologians on AI, which are all very interesting and valuable for me as philosopher. I have been surprised how many theologians are in fact well informed on and expressing interesting opinions on AI. They mostly all agree on one point, which is that in fact the imago Dei, so this idea that in fact as Michael was saying, we need a perspective from outside. We cannot just, take the computer and our human capacities and say, okay, let's see how it works together. We need also either the divine being, either the finality of the Bible, or any other metaphysical grounding principle, in order to found, in fact, this discussion on the capacity of these machines, so supercomputers in the future, to spread information. This is all very fine, and we hope that we will increase our capacity to do a lot of things, because it will be much swifter to realize practical, operations. There is this metaphor of Lovelock that we will be like, now we are, toward plants. The future machine things as we would be plants. It will be so slow compared to them. It's quite funny to see that. Yes, by this is a desirable future. To leave my tax paperwork, for instance, to a machine, a robot that would help me with my administration. So that's or to just any other very practical task might be very well, I think, realized by a computer and a machine in an automated way. But are we in a situation where we as human beings awaken our capacities and continue, future generations with our children, with the children of our children, have this open horizon of awakening our capacities and not being so saturated by anything you might imagine. So that's, I think, part of the question and the response on the role of computers, of information technology. This is all intelligent, but it needs to be a singular aspect of the life, and not a all-encompassing solution to problems. I don't know, what do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I actually don't have anything to add. Ignace, we are, I think, as you mentioned, we are very close in our positions there. Yes, I would simply also leave open what this outside perspective is. I would make a minimalist statement just as a repetition of what I said before. It cannot be a computationalist standpoint, because that's what we are talking about here in the AI paradigm. So the offers are very diverse. We have different cultures with different metaphysical standpoints, which provide alternatives to not get disoriented in the age of AI.
Thank you for the thought-provoking session and for touching upon so many ideas that would leave us thinking, and for so many ideas that we could ponder on. I would like to now invite Professor Maria Nirmal to propose the vote of thanks.
Good day, everyone. As we conclude the engaging session on Lovelock James Noacene, The Coming Age of Hyperintelligence, a commentary, it is my privilege to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks to Dr. Ignace Haaz and Dr. Michael for their outstanding contribution to our faculty development program. Dr. Ignace and Dr. Michael, your insightful analysis and thought-provoking commentary on the James Lovelock Noacene have not only enlightened us but also provided a deeper understanding of the concept of hyperintelligence. On behalf of Don Bosco College, I express our profound gratitude for your comprehensive and illuminating presentation. Lastly, I extend my appreciation to all the participants for their active engagement. Wishing you all a wonderful day ahead, and meet you all tomorrow for another impactful session. Thank you.